Live from our studio audience, it's 5 More Minutes, Mom, with your hosts, Brielle and Guerlain, on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network.
What a way to start. I was muted. We are professionals here. Hello. My name is Brielle. And welcome to 5 More Minutes, Mom, the show where we are very professional and never make mistakes. Okay, so first at the bottom of the screen is all of our social media information. So you can follow 5 More Minutes Mom specifically, so you can stay up to date on when our podcasts are. You can also follow the Empty the Bench Podcast Network, which is what we're like under, like the umbrella of. You can follow Guerlain and myself on our social medias. If that's interesting to you, you can do that. But yeah, let's get into it today. Today is going to be a very interesting episode, I think.
Yes, today we are talking about diversity in
Yes.
uh in the in the media that we consumed as kids and whatnot.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about the ways that the shows that we watched and the movies that we watched as kids, I think, kind of shaped the way that we think about that buzzword of diversity and equality and things like that, because it's so interesting. Now, I know that obviously, there are plenty of shows nowadays that feature people of different races and ethnicities and skin tones and religions and things like that. But I just feel like, and again, this could be nostalgia kind of coloring my view, but I feel like so many of the shows that we watched as kids were like really diverse, like on purpose.
Hmm.
Like when we were talking about this podcast and talking about the things we wanted to talk about, um, we mentioned diversity, and I brought up Puzzle Place because that was a show that I remember watching as a kid. And last night, for like research, I watched the Defunct Land episode about Puzzle Place, which, if anyone doesn't know, Defunct Land is a YouTube channel, and he does videos about theme park history, but he also does a side like show about old TV. It's not a podcast; it's like a real history deep dive. But he did one about Puzzle Place, and I found out not only was the show a direct response to the LA race riots, but that the show was specifically made to kind of introduce children to the concepts of equality and non-prejudice and things like that.
Okay.
And when you think about the show, that's what it was. I mean, there was like one of every kind, on that show.
Right.
I very distinctly remember the Native American character. His name was Sky. And I very distinctly remember I think she was Chinese, the Chinese character. Her name was Julie. Apparently there was a Jewish character too, which I do not remember, which is weird because I usually always remember Jewish characters because I'm Jewish and but I was watching that episode and I was like, oh, there was a Jewish character? I don't remember that. But yeah, I think it's so interesting that this show existed because I feel like that wasn't the only one. Like, I feel like every show that was on when we were kids always had, like, yeah, it was a little tokenizing. I'll admit that. Like, I think
Hmm.
now we can look back on it and be like, that's a little tokenizing. But I feel like every show had like a black kid, some kind of Latino kid, maybe an Asian kid. Usually there was a kid who had like a disability, like someone in a wheelchair, or like that kid on Barney with the hearing aid. You know, I I feel like when we were kids, the children's shows that we watched, unless the characters were like animals or something,
Hmm.
was very diverse. Like there was like multiple types of people in those shows.
I was thinking about it. I was trying to think back. What shows can I reflect back on and say, "Oh yeah, uh, it was really diverse in its characters and its representation." The first thing that came to my head was a Codename Kids Next Door.
Yeah. Yeah, that show was diverse. There were kids of different types there. Yeah.
All types of different kids, from different backgrounds that came together to fight adult tyranny. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And
but I couldn't really think of anything else though.
what about like oh, you know it's a really good example? Hey
Mm.
Arnold.
Okay, yeah.
Hey Arnold not only had diversity of like races and ethnicities and religions, but they also had diversity of class, which I think is so interesting
Mhm.
because I feel like, and I could be wrong, but I feel like Hey Arnold was really the first time that I was introduced to the idea of class as a child because I grew up, I'll admit, like very middle class, like right in the middle class. And obviously, like I was aware that rich people existed. I was aware that poor people existed. But I feel like Hey Arnold was really the first time that I like understood what that kind of meant for a family to be on the poorer side, for a family to be on the richer side, and what that means, and also what that doesn't mean, and what that says about the person, which is nothing. Being rich or poor doesn't make you a good or a bad person. Um, and so,
Yeah,
yeah, I think that's really interesting.
hey, I don't know, it was interesting when they had that whole episode. What was the rich girl's name? I think it was like Yolanda or something like that.
No, the rich girl was Phoebe. I think Yolanda was her friend, if that was her name. But yeah, Phoebe was the rich one.
No, no,
Oh, the rich oh,
Phoebe.
rich like,
The yeah, Phoebe was the smart one.
Phoebe was the smart one, the rich girl was Rhonda. Rhonda.
Rhonda,
Okay,
Rhonda.
yeah.
I remember
Yeah, no.
that one episode where I forgot what happened to her parents. I don't know if they went broke or something,
Yes!
and she had to live with Arnold and see how the other side is.
Yeah.
That was an interesting episode.
Yeah, I Hey Arnold, I feel like really was a very interesting show
Yeah,
because it really showed, like, New York City for what it was, which was all these different people, all these different backgrounds, different types of families in Hey Arnold. It wasn't just like a mom and dad and kids. Like there were different types of families and different types of living situations. And like it blows my mind that the show existed the way that it did, because I
mm,
feel like, unfortunately, we've backslid a little.
mm,
I feel like things have gotten a little worse in terms of diversity. And yes, you can say what you want that like Puzzle Place and like having every show have a girl character and have a black character and have that one kid in a wheelchair is a little tokenizing, but at least it was showing kids other people besides who maybe they directly lived with.
right.
Because like I grew up in a town that was very, very white, very Christian, um, a little more leaning towards the Republican side. So getting to watch TV and see and learn about different cultures was wonderful. I think it's kind of what helped me, I hope at least, be as open-minded and, fingers crossed non-racist as I am or as I
Mm.
try to be because obviously, I'm not perfect and, whatever, but but like I remember one of my favorite shows when I was a kid was Gullah Gullah Island and it never really like occurred to me like, "Oh, that family is black. This show isn't for me." Of course it was for me. The show was for everybody.
Mm.
And I got to watch a show and see a family completely different from my own, but also not different from my own because they loved each other and my family loved each other. And like I learned about a totally different culture that I never would have been, exposed to because of where I lived. Not because my parents were like, "Don't, talk to other people," but like because, I lived in the place that I lived and so getting to have all these different people on my television screen, I think was a really good thing.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of how, for me personally, how it shaped my worldview on uh different backgrounds, different races, different creeds, and whatnot. I want to say because so you lived in a very white town.
Yeah.
My town, not to say that it was predominantly black or anything, but it was just mixed. Like the town I live in is very mixed. Like all types of people live here, and I don't know. I guess for me to really think of anything um specific, anything that I watched specifically that like really helped shape my view, is really hard for me because I feel I just it all of it all of it happened in front of me in real time.
Mm.
Not on not much on Medium. The only thing that media really showed me is two things actually. It is um the other side of being black, you know, the stereotypical stuff, but there's some truth in it. The gang, the violence and stuff like that, that I consume through media. And
Mm.
and not through like the typical means like gangster rap or anything like that. Um for example, Static Shock.
Mm.
Static Shock really showed that, I guess you could say, inner city life and whatnot that I wasn't privy to because
Yeah.
I'm a black suburban kid. So seeing the life of a black inner city kid, I consumed that through Static Shock, and they had a really good episode on gun violence. It was,
Oh, cool.
yeah, really great. And the other thing was how uh, white people may live. I think it's funny because my sister and I, we will crack jokes because when she started high school, she came back and she was like, High School Musical lied to me. High School is nothing like they said it was in High School Musical, which was hilarious. And we how to represent in high school, how free period, you get to walk around and yada yada. Our high school wasn't like that.
No, my
But
high school wasn't. High School
oh,
Musical is not representative of any high school. Like, no high
okay.
school is like that.
I mean, she had her high hopes up. Like High School Musical really, it really
Yeah.
put
Honestly, I
some
was most disappointed about the fact that we didn't have the long lockers in my high school. We had, like, the little, like, top
yeah.
and bottom. I wanted the long, thin ones.
Did I have long? Yeah, we had long ones, but we had both. We had the short ones and the long ones,
Oh, okay.
and a mixture.
Yeah.
But it's just something specific about um the white kid experience that, okay, for and this might just be my own experience, but sleepovers.
Yeah.
We see that I saw that on television. I
Yeah.
never actually experienced a sleepover in real life because the way my parents are is just like, yeah, you don't sleep over at people's house or anything like that. But anytime we did see sleepovers on media, it'll always be, white kids like Lizzie
Yeah,
McGuire
I mean,
or whatnot.
yeah, I mean, I don't think you're wrong. I feel like other cultures don't necessarily do that.
But I just say all that to say is that that's what um the media back in the day like really helped me see. Is like, oh, so that's not normal to you guys. What's normal to us, and this is normal to us. What's not normal to you. That's interesting. Like
Yeah.
it like made me more aware of that.
Yeah, I just looking back on all the shows from when we were kids, it really is amazing, like, how diverse they all were. Like, there were so many shows about, like, different kinds of families. Like, there was, like you were saying in the first episode, like, American Dragon Jake Long, which was about an Asian American family. It was about a mixed family, Proud Family, Gullah Gullah Island, The only thing that was not represented in the late 90s, early 2000s was, like, gay people.
I mean,
That was
yeah,
the only thing.
yeah,
That was the only thing, because gay people, as we all know, didn't exist until Will and Grace aired. As we all know,
right.
gay people just didn't exist until that show aired. Um, yeah, that's one thing that actually I do really like about more modern shows like now, is that I
Hmm,
feel like a more modern TV shows, even for kids, and especially for kids, do feature more LGBTQ representation, which I think is great. Like, I think it's wonderful that they're doing that. Like Owl House and She-Ra, like, and Steven Universe and things like that. Like, they have that kind of representation. That's wonderful. Like, I really think that's great because
hmm,
we didn't have that. Like, that was, yeah, that was not part of the diversity that they kind of, like, inserted into every show when we were kids.
right. I mean, the gay representation back then, it was kind of there, but it was really bad. It was really bad. Like you mentioned, Proud Family, they did had a queer coded character, but
Yeah.
even now, the creator he looks back at it and he says, "Yeah, we did not do that character justice." And
Yeah.
with the reboot, the soft reboot that they're doing now they're
Okay, I
handling
didn't
that
know that.
character better. Yeah,
Yeah. But again, like you said, it was queer coded. It wasn't like an explicitly, gay or lesbian character.
right.
Baby steps. But yeah, no, it's just it really is kind of awesome when you look back and think about it because, I just can't help but think about all of the kids who maybe felt like they weren't like they felt weird or out of place in their communities or, in their world. And so they would turn on the television and see, you know, all these different kinds of people and they'd see people who looked like them, who thought like them. And I just think that's so wonderful. It's so like heartwarming. Like for me, I getting like watching Rugrats and seeing the Hanukkah episode and seeing the Passover episode was so important to me because there was no Jewish representation on television. There was like, if a character was Jewish, it was either mentioned once to be
Mhm.
like point or it was used as a joke.
Mm.
Most representation of Jewish people was a punchline, was a stereotype. We had like the nanny, which God bless that show because that show was like I looked at Fran Fine and her mother and her grandma and I was like, that's my family, Um, but like that was kind of it. And the nanny wasn't like a kid show. Like it wasn't like an adult show, but it wasn't a kid show. So getting to watch Rugrats, getting to watch Puzzle Plays apparently,
Mm.
getting to watch Hey Arnold with Harold when he got his bar mitzvah, you know,
Yeah.
it was so important to me because it reminded me that I wasn't alone. Because like I said, in the town that I grew up in, it was not Jewish.
Mhm.
Like me and my sister were one of like 5 Jewish kids, and the other like 3 Jewish kids were all like half Jewish on their dad's side, which I want to be very clear. If you are Jewish on your father's side, you are Jewish if you want to be. I'm not about to be like, oh, patrilineal Jews are Jews. They are Jews if they want to be. You are Jewish. However,
Mm.
in this case, those boys were not Jewish.
Oh,
Yeah, those
mm.
boys were not Jewish. They just happened to have a Jewish last name. Like it was very obvious. Who knows where they are in their journey now? I don't know, but that's the situation. So yeah, to have the Rugrats Passover episode be a thing and be able to talk about that with my friends to help me explain what Passover was or explain that like I couldn't eat bread for a week, so like your mom can't order pizza when I come over, and explain what Hanukkah was when people are like, you don't celebrate Christmas, was I think so wonderful. And I hope that that extended for other people. So like, I hope that like somewhere out there a little boy used, the puzzle plays knowing that his friends watched it to explain the Lunar New Year or something like that. Like I hope that that's what happened,
Mm.
because I think that's so beautiful and I think that's so amazing and wonderful. And sorry, my nose is like a little runny today because the weather is like it. Um, I just think that's so wonderful because, you know, I I like to think people make jokes about our generation being like the woke generation, but I think it's because of this. I think it's because everything that we watched made sure to include almost everyone.
Almost. It was,
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
right.
they're not gonna include everyone, and like we said, and again, like, was it perfect representation? No, of course not. It was not perfect representation, and a lot of that representation didn't exist behind the scenes, which is a problem. I'm not trying to be like, "It was amazing," like, but even so.
Uh, so I would say that with I slightly disagree with
Okay.
how. You know what? No, no, no. Not even I disagree. Because like the more that you're talking about it, the more I'm thinking, like, okay, like the points you're bringing up of like what was represented, what was not represented. For me, you know what it was? Not now. Now that I'm really thinking about it,
Okay.
what was diverse for me back then? Like what was introduced to me was specifically music.
Okay.
I would say that the media back in the day, when it came to music, like they really, really, you know, it wasn't one specific genre. Even though back then the popular genre was rock,
Mhm.
but not everything was rock. So Hey Arnold was jazz. You had some jazz in there. It early instances of lo-fi hip hop that's popular now,
Yeah.
ironically. Um, Same with Blues Clues. Blues Clues had a lot of jazz, a lot of blues, the doom 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 when Steve was walking and everything.
Yeah.
Even something like Courage the Cowardly Dog introduced me into. It's funny, slightly introduced me to the Beatles because Ringo actually voiced a character in Courage the Cowardly Dog, and and I was like, oh,
That's
that
funny.
voice is like interesting. So for me, diversity is mainly just music, but
Okay.
but I think this is really interesting because for you, diversity was completely different. It was actually feeling like you was being represented, and I not that it took me a while to actually understand the importance of representation
Mhm.
because I didn't care. You know, because I would be inside with my sister. We would watch TV, we would laugh and whatnot, not paying no mind to like, hey, they don't look like us or they do look like us. Because we would do that and then we'll go outside and play with our Hispanic neighbors. Like it's nothing. Because like we
Mhm.
was like, yeah, they're Spanish, but we didn't think that they were Spanish. They're just people. We're all
Yeah.
just people. That's how we really and granted that that comes with a level of privilege to be able to think like that, to be able to view the world like that.
Mhm.
Um, but that wasn't important for me personally, and her too. It was really just music, but I think it's interesting that for you it was the fact that um you could identify with your heritage, with Jewish traditions and whatnot, that being shown and not being in a jokey way, actually discuss what's going on in that. I think it's interesting
Yeah.
how we both took something different from it, and how
Yeah.
diversity doesn't necessarily just mean people being represented. It could just mean just being introduced to different cultures, whether it's music, art, whatever it is. Yeah, just
Yeah.
it's interesting.
No, I think that's great. I never really considered the diversity of music in the shows that we watched, but yeah, I feel like every show had a very distinct sound and they were all, so interesting, and I feel like a lot of the shows try to introduce us to like different art styles or different music styles.
Mhm.
Yeah, I never even thought about that as part of this, but I think it is because, it kind of not forces you, but it like makes you interested to learn. Like the episode of Hey Arnold where they went to the opera, how
Yes.
many kids
Rem-
were interested in opera then because of that? And that's great. Opera
Yeah.
I think is a very interesting art form and I think more people should be interested in it. Um, yeah, I just and that isn't to say that like there aren't great shows that are diverse now. Like I said, there are all these shows that have LGBTQ representation. I know that there's shows that like show different types of families. Like there's like the Casa Grandes, which I believe is a Latino family, and there's like the Proud Family reboot, and there's Craig of the Creek, which I know is about a black family.
Mhm.
Um, so it's not that like suddenly everything's like white, and waspy, but I think we did grow up in such an interesting time
Yes.
for children's television and diversity, you know? I think we did grow up in such an interesting time to look
Yes.
back because it's almost like you can go by a checklist, like, "Oh, here's a children's show. Does it have a black guy? Yeah. Does it have a Asian girl? Yep. Kid in a wheelchair? Oh, that's 2 points," like, um, yeah, it's just I think there's something really like wonderful about that and I'm happy that we got it because I would hope that it's made us now as adults and I've been proven wrong I think sometimes but I would hope that it's made us more open-minded, more non-judgmental people now because of what we were exposed to as kids, you know?
Yeah, I mean that definitely. I would say some of us it definitely impact because there are kids who it went over their heads, like it
Yeah.
didn't matter to them, um, and there are some where it did. Like it's hilarious to see sometimes how guarded some people are of anime,
Yeah.
and like anime itself is a diverse art form,
Yeah.
you know. Is basically cartoons from the East, but they bring their culture and whatnot into it. And I
Yeah.
think it's hilarious how some people are very, you know, like you say you like anime, it's like, oh, okay, what kind of anime do you like? Oh,
Yeah,
that's
they
not
get
real anime.
yeah,
It's
they're like
like,
weeaboos about it.
how can right? Like,
Yeah.
how can you gatekeep something that is supposed to be for everyone? It's supposed to open your eyes to the world, and yet it's interesting the different type of effects that it did have on people. So
Yeah.
yes, like you and I clearly, um us
We got
talking,
the right
we,
messages.
yeah.
We should have, like, a little banner that says, "Non-racist."
Not racist, not
Yeah.
homophobic.
Yeah.
We we we
Perfect
we
human
took the good
beings
stuff
who've
from
never
it,
made a mistake.
right? Different walks of life, people will take
Yeah.
different things from it. You can't heal the world, you can't change the world
No, not necessarily as
completely,
one person
right?
or immediately.
And it's like,
Oh, but
what is right and wrong? Mhm.
speaking of anime, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it's so it's so interesting because, like you're saying, like, oh, anime came from like the East and it came from Japan, and it was introducing us to that culture because like every anime kind of takes place in Japan unless it was like a magical city or something.
Right.
But can we talk about the like Americanization of anime? Like
What do you
how
mean?
on Sailor Moon, when I watched it originally in the 90s, which I love Sailor Moon, they gave the characters, like, American names,
Oh,
and, like,
yeah,
how on Pokemon they called the, nigiri, they called it, like, donuts and stuff.
right.
Like, that's really interesting too, because like, the shows were obviously like, we weren't stupid, we knew the shows took place in Japan. We
Mhm.
knew that what they were eating wasn't donuts, so it's just really interesting that, like, the 4 Kids dub, like, made it, like, American, like, "That's not Usagi, that's Serena," like, you can call her Usagi, like, we can understand that name, you know?
They did the same thing with, there's a video game series called Ace Attorney,
Yes, yes,
and
I know Ace
oh,
Attorney.
oh, okay.
Yeah, I know Ace
So,
Attorney.
well, one of the, characters. So me no, Maya,
Mm.
in the game, she's like the American version, "I want a hamburger," but really, she's not obsessed with hamburgers, she likes, I think it was either noodles or rice balls, but
Oh,
they
yeah.
made it hamburger because it's America.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's
I think
that
that's
is
so
funny.
interesting.
Yeah.
It's like a weird thing that they did, I guess, to try and be more palatable to American audiences, but I think we would have enjoyed them anyway. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, Pokemon was, like, huge. I mean, so it's like I think we could have handled I think our 7-year-old brains could have handled Brock saying, "This is nigiri, it's rice and, like, sometimes meat inside," like, we would have been fine. There were all these monster animals, I think we would have been okay.
But you know what? It probably wasn't for the kids. It was probably
Yeah,
for the parents. It was like, "You're bringing communism over here. What is this?
yeah.
We don't eat with chopsticks. We eat with forks and spoons.
Even though even though
America."
communism wasn't even Japanese, communism is, like, Chinese, like,
You know, they would say that though.
Yeah, no, I'm sure, yeah.
Man, what is this? Ching and that racist stuff. What is ching chong? Yeah, it's like
Oh
no.
god, don't say that. Oh god.
That's what it was back in the day, and that's probably why they had to Americanize everything. Cause like, no, 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 it's not. Don't think this way.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably not wrong, and it was probably for advertisers too,
Yeah.
they had to do that. Um, also, if anyone's interested in hearing, Gerlin and I do a deep dive on another, diverse show, Avatar: The Last Airbender,
Ooh.
you can watch under a rock. It is not like this show.
No.
Um, that was another show though, actually. I don't wanna talk too much about Avatar, but, like, Avatar was another show that I think is kind of amazing that
Mm,
it existed at all because it was a show that was strictly about Asian cultures and it pulled from so many Asian cultures and it wasn't a perfect show, as we've discussed and other people have said, but like it did such a great job of like introducing people to those cultures and to those ideas and philosophies. So
Yeah.
honestly, it's amazing when you really think back to the type of things that we got to watch. Like that's amazing.
And see, and that's why I had to catch myself before when I was thinking like it wasn't that diverse, but diversity is such a broad word. It could
Yeah.
literally just mean so yeah, so I was gonna say I disagree, but just to rectify, just to clarify, excuse me, I agree. I agree. We did had a lot of diversity back in the day, culture, music, art. We yeah, I, it was really interesting the stuff that was on TV, the stuff that was allowed back then, and and that we were even able to consume what we consumed back in the day, good and bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
And I mean, even if you did disagree, you're allowed to disagree. We don't have to have the same point of view.
yeah,
Um, yeah, it was a really interesting time, and I'm so glad that we were able to be a part of it, you know?
yes.
Tear, tear. Um, okay,
Take me back.
so yeah, I think we're good. I think we're done. I think we've kind of exhausted this topic.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. So again, at the bottom of the screen is all of our social media information. You can watch our podcast every Saturday at 11 a.m. on youtube.com/ETB network. Please give this video a like, a comment, a subscribe. Let us know what you think. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? What were your favorite shows from childhood, and what kind of new concepts or cultures did they introduce you to? Like, we'd love to start a conversation.
Yeah.
Thanks, girl.
I'm just like, yeah, there's like
Very
that's
succinct.
great.
Anyway, thank you so much, everyone, for watching, and we will see you next week.
See ya.